We'd like to call the meeting to order of the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission meeting Wednesday, June 14th at 10 a.m. or a little 10:05 to be exact. Call to order.
Commission members Brown,
Present.
Carter,
Present.
Harris,
Present.
Herr,
Present.
Rodriguez,
Present.
Vice Chairman Little,
Present.
Chairman Vieira. We have a quorum.
Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Commissioner Carter will lead us.
Place your right hand over your heart and recite with me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No presentations? Any cards for agendized items on? I have nothing.
No, sir.
Can we pass that? Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of our meeting May 10th? Do I hear a motion and a second?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. It passes 6-0. Let's get into our commission staff updates, present reports. Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Deputy Yenny DeSiga. I work at a Lancaster station. Deputy Ruiz is not here today. He's going to be on military leave for the next 3 weeks. So you will see me today and then next month. So I have my partner here to help me. All right. The Crime Commission report for the month of, our stats for the month of May. We have our burglary suppression team. They had 13 felony arrests, 1 search warrant, 14 warrant arrests. They recovered 1 firearm, and they recovered $41,000 worth of property, stolen property. Our LANCAP team had 35 felony arrests, 32 misdemeanor arrests, with a total of 67 arrests a month. They recovered 2 stolen vehicles, and they recovered 3 firearms. For our robbery team, they had 15 felony arrests, 3 search warrants, and they did recover 1 firearm for their total of 26 robberies, 12 being armed, and 14 strong-armed. For our crime prevention for the month of May, we did our summer safety tips at our Coffee with the Deputy. We did some of the burglary prevention presentations and neighborhood watch meeting. For May, we had our fire service day, which was, we work with the fire department and have our search and rescue team of reserve deputies that show up and have a little presentation. They set up a table. They allow the kids to check our search and rescue equipment for May. So they had a good time there. May is also, we went to our memorial ceremony in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., which was very humbling. The month of May, as you all know, is our memorial tradition to either military or law enforcement. So that was a real nice event to attend. We did have our coffee with the deputy on Thursday, which is every month. Our community is growing as far as the lemon leaf that we attend. People show up, and it's very like one-on-one conversation with the people. So it's good to have that, I think, and it's really growing. So we might have to maybe move to a bigger place, but they do appreciate it, both the businesses and the community. Our deputies attended a Little League baseball game they played with the special needs kids, and it was great. We played against the Yankees, and it was 2 teams. We actually had our deputies playing, and then our special needs kids team, and we were paired up with kids that play on the Little League. So that was a lot of fun. They had a blast, and they won. They beat us, I think, like 11-1 or something. So, but it was great to be out there with the kids. They really enjoyed it. And then this are the pictures of our kids for the Yankees team and the Dodgers team. And the next picture is just us being at Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Some of our deputies went over there for the ceremony. So that was great. Our next one is going to be our ComStat for the, is it on? Our ComStat for the city of Lancaster. Sorry, I should have ready. Okay, so what we had for our part one crime for May compared to last year, our crime is down 13%. For the next slide, our rapes are down. For our robberies are also down for the month of May. Our aggravated assaults, they've gone up. Our burglaries, they continue to go down or at a steady pace. They haven't really increased. Our thefts also have gone down. And our grand theft vehicles, those have gone up just a tad. And then our LEAPS progress report. For our arrests, we had 30 arrests, 45 fights and assaults. We had 17 burglary robberies, assist with a airplane, and then 13 traffic stops, 13 other OBS that we had, and we were able to recover 11 guns. 52% of, I'm sorry, let me slow down here. On the average, 52% of the use was for people, like emergency medical responses and assaults. 16% was property, 14% of arrests and detentions, 12% were vehicles, and 6% of the observations from our LEAPS was arrests. They've also have upgraded our camera system, so it's a consistent view, and we have consistent communication. The antenna has been upgraded, so there's consistent communication with them all the time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Could I ask one question, please?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible you could tell me, and perhaps some of the other commission knows, and a lot of people here already know, what is the difference between an armed and a strong arm?
When someone is actually being forced to give their property up to, thanks, sir. When somebody is actually forced to give their property, like if I grab your shirt and tell you to give me your cell phone, or your money or your wallet, when I'm actually forcing you to give me your stuff.
Okay, so that isn't right. The difference isn't regulated on whether or not there's a weapon involved.
Correct. And then the other one is, if I show you, give me your, like I just show you a knife and give me your wallet, and then you just hand it to me. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
We see a significant decrease over this period of time, I can see, as far as your categories.
Which one, sir?
On the year-to-year comparison?
From last year, May 2016?
Yeah. I see, it seems to continue to be going down.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. I hope, hopefully it continues to go down with everybody, especially during the summer.
Yeah, just a comment. You know, an interesting thing to do is you look at our robbery arrests. A lot of those are like strong arms for your cell phone or arm for a cell phone, and that's been kind of a focus for the robbery team, is going out and putting those cases together. Recently, there was a significant arrest where a significant amount of cell phones and property were recovered that the LANCAP program put together and served a search warrant and followed up with that. So it's an interesting thing when you look at it, because a lot of people see robbery, they think, hey, it's liquor store robbery, stick up, or bank robbery or things, and typically what drive our number is that strong arm type or our Estes robberies, where we have a petty theft in a market and then the person tries to escape and uses force to try and overcome any detention that they may have, escalates that now. because of that type of case. So a lot of that is, so when we say robbery, it can be inclusive of a lot of different things that will have different levels of priority as it relates to the type of robbery.
Are the hours increasing as far as the LEAPS program? Is that constantly increasing or stays pretty much the same?
Our commitment is the same.
The same.
I mean, there's things that change it with weather or some, equipment maintenance, things like that. But we're very consistent now on how much time we have in the air, and we work that out very well with Archie and the folks. Something that's changed recently that Tim put together with the program they introduced on getting reserves and getting the hours up on the monitoring at the station, which is why you're seeing some of the increases here on involvement. But always remember, that's in the air all the time, 10 hours a day. Okay, so it's out there. There's going to be some deployment things we'll talk about for the summer with hours and things as well that we'll bring forward, and we're going to play with that a little bit.
The new camera system is far more superior than what the other stuff was. I mean,
Yes.
clarity. I thought the stuff that had Archie before was incredible. So
Just being creative about more utilization. There's some things we from the city would like to use it for too as well as it relates to things we deal with.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
And if I could, just real quick, last month we had a couple of really good uses of the LEAP system. And every force incident, every pursuit, there's certain critical incidents that we do packages on review, and they all come across my desk, and I read every report, I listen to every piece of audio, I watch all the video. And last month we had two really interesting ones that used the LEAP system, and one of them was a pursuit of a driver who was probably intoxicated and was driving so crazy that we ultimately had to stop our pursuit for safety reasons. And the LEAPS plane was able to stay on him and observe him until he went to a house and bedded down in a house. And we were able to call in deputies and take him into custody. And then we had another incident where foot pursuits are really dangerous for our folks. It's one of those incidents that result in a lot of injuries to deputies and a lot of injuries to suspects also. And we were able to use the LEAPS plane to monitor a indecent exposure suspect as he was running around the wash, to where we could really call in a good containment and lock him down and take him into custody without incident. So it's a really good asset for us, and we appreciate it.
yeah, thank you, Captain.
Yeah, I'm glad you told those stories because it really does illustrate the importance of the asset, the importance of it being a force multiplier, and why it's so valuable to the force. So, thank you.
And we always think of the safety towards the officer, but it really increases the safety towards the community member, suspect, whatever it may be. It increases safety for both sides.
Any other questions? Deputy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. California Highway Patrol. Hi.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kathleen Toggenberger. I'm a lieutenant with the Antelope Valley CHP office up here. I'm sorry, we don't have PowerPoints. Highway Patrol doesn't have that. Well, we have the technology, I just don't. I just don't know how to do it. But for the month of May, we handled 156 collisions. That was including three fatal collisions. 14 of those were impaired driver involved. But to combat that, we also have our officers out there patrolling not just the freeways, but the unincorporated areas where we have a lot of the fatalities. And we do try to target as much as possible those areas where we have a high rate of collisions, and also where the community and civilians come and tell us, and we get complaints from them. They phone in those traffic complaints, and we send out, and oftentimes we utilize our senior volunteers to monitor, to see if we need to have officers go out and respond and saturate or target an area to help minimize serious collisions and those injuries and fatalities. So having that in mind, we did issue over 1,100 citations, but in addition to that, we also have contacts where we have over 400 verbal warnings issued. So not everything is going to be a citation. Sometimes it's educating the public in what they did and how they did it and why they can't do it. We had over 1,500 total enforcement contacts, and we wound up our season of every 15 minutes, which is a hugely popular and very successful program throughout the state that we are the coordinator of. However, just in this valley alone, it's an extremely valuable tool to go hands-on for the teenagers graduating high school, going to proms, and show them what can happen, and they live it. They live having a DUI classmate, go through the whole DUI process, from driving, from the collision scene that we mock up, as well as an arrest, and even going to jail, going to hospitals. It's a very powerful and impactful program, and we have Start Smart, which continues throughout the year. That's kind of it for us. Any questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
Do you think that, your traffic hazards, alcohol versus texting, is texting making a run at alcohol?
I don't have any statistics to draw on that. However, I think all of us in our own lives and daily driving around, you see someone and they're weaving, and immediately you used to think drunk driver or impaired, because we have so many things that are outside of the alcohol realm and impaired. Now, you immediately are like, they're on the phone. So I think that it's definitely coming up to where it does distracted driving campaign. We had that in April, but throughout the year, we're always trying to concentrate on that, because driving already requires all of your faculties, and when people are texting, and especially teens, but then of course the moms and dads have to set the example, and that's something that we're always trying to educate the public on. I can't tell you what the correlation is, and if there's, if the texting is becoming worse as far as crash related, but I would say that it's definitely a factor. We don't always know that though, because they don't tell us.
Officer, of the 1,100 citations, do you know a number of those citations would be texting citations? I was just kind of curious, because it seems to me like, wherever you go, at least around what I see, is that somebody's on their phone.
Yeah,
When it says hands-free, it doesn't seem to be hands-free. It seems to be hands-on.
Yeah, it is hands-free, and, especially without my glasses, I'm not sure.
That's right.
I if I find it, I will let you know.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. It'd be interesting to know.
But we are
in
writing
future.
those citations.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to know, to let the younger generation know too, and all business people too, that it is illegal to. I was just kind of curious at 1,100 citations, what that number could possibly be.
And under 18, they're not even hands-free. Under 18, they can't even do hands-free. So that is something that we educate the schools when we go.
It should be radio-free too, shouldn't it? Yes.
Well, we can only go so far.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, officer.
I'm sorry. I asked that because I know Gil Hernandez in the every 15-minute program I think you're alluding to was beginning to work in the distracted driver element of that program too, which I think is a terrific program.
Yes, and they'll continue to do that, because that's, the world we live in today. No one's giving up their lifeline, what they think, or to everything else. And, we're going to continue to incorporate, technology as it advances. What are the hazards? And we're going to look at that, in the big picture, and determine where we need to work those things in our programs to educate the public.
Thank you. I will interrupt you.
I don't know if any of you had a chance to participate or observe the Every 15 Minutes program this year, but they did a great job, and our school deputies were involved with it with them. And the students heard from a CHP officer, a mother whose son was killed by a drunk driver, and they also heard from the young lady who was the driver who killed him, who had done prison time and came back and spoke. So they heard both sides. It was really impactful this year. They did a great job on it.
This was the first time we were able to incorporate that, and that officer works in my office, and her son was killed by a drunk driver, I believe it was 6 to 7 years ago. So, he was an adult, and she ramrodded doing this, the officer. And actually, in the last couple months, it's the first time that she spoke personally and saw the person who killed her son. And they did the program together, and it was very impactful.
Wow.
Gil Hernandez does a phenomenal job. I mean, who you mentioned, everyone knows who he is, and he really does a good job. But Officer Thomas, who has been doing the program with him, she is the one who stepped up and said, hey, I would like to incorporate this. And we're hesitant for obvious reasons for her emotional well-being, but it worked really well and was very impactful for the students and the parents.
Very cool.
He gave a presentation of the program, I think a video in here a few years ago, which was very moving, and maybe sometime in the future he would do that again.
Yes, absolutely. We can work that out whenever you would like that to be on the agenda one time.
Any other questions? Thank you, officer, for everything you do. Thank you so much. Mr. Franklin.
Good morning. I have April and May's. Last month I didn't have April statistics. They finally got those collected. So again, this is for the entire Antelope Valley, including the prison, just not Lancaster. But the complaints filed in April for felonies were 269. We declined 120. So that a substantial amount was not were not filed. So we do look at these very, very closely. But those that are filed, then we handle very adroitly and seriously. The amount of misdemeanors, we filed 755, declined 83 for a total of 838. Year-to-date for April was 2,769. So in May, we filed 265 felonies, rejected 136, for a total of 1,206. And to put that into perspective, the branches that are closest to us would be Compton and Norwalk, which also have what we call area offices, satellite offices, like San Fernando has Santa Clarita. Obviously, we're standalone. We filed 628 misdemeanors in May, declined 149 for a year-to-date 3,425. May was a very busy month for jury trials. We tried 23. 3 of those were murder cases. One was somebody who was executed with not a crossbow, but with a longbow. One was a baby murder, and one was a domestic violence stabbing where the defendant stabbed the victim. I think it was something like 95 times, but there was convictions in all of those, so the troops are really working hard. Currently, Commissioner Harris, we're doing a robbery case, a true armed robbery where, as we speak, it's being tried, where 4 defendants went into a marijuana dispensary with pepper spray, with a handgun, and stole a boatload of marijuana, and then on the way out, shot one of the victims as they were leaving. So that's a true armed robbery. By the way, everyone's always welcome to come by, and I'll show you around. Doc Brown had to stop by for a matter, and I gave him a tour, as well as Mr. DeRico and Ms. Corbett have stopped in. You're always welcome to come in and see how the operation is. It's a busy operation, and we have 2 floors, and probably each floor is about the size of a football field. It's big, so everyone's always welcome to do that. And that would conclude my report.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin, a question. When you say that
you filed cases, and then there was a certain amount rejected. When you say rejected, does that mean a lesser count is taken into effect, or is a case actually totally rejected completely?
Yeah, actually, the proper term would be either declined or sent back for further investigation. It wouldn't be a lesser offense. That would be, if we filed something lesser, say, instead of a robbery, we filed a grand theft person, that would still be considered a filing. But generally, it's, maybe it's just a one-on-one, they don't know each other. There's certain criteria that we have to have. We need corroboration for IDs and so forth, and if it's not there, then we won't file the case, or we'll send it back for further investigation, wanting certain, sometimes forensic items examined, or follow up with witnesses prior to us filing it. But we want to get that done at the initial phase, if at all possible, prior to filing. So
when it's rejected, it could very well come back.
It's a kind of a slang term. It's really declined or sent back for further investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Try and give it a good look up front, and I always push the sheriffs real hard and literally get their word. Look, you're sending this out for DNA analysis. There's enough to file here. I'll file it, but you give me your word. Yeah, I'll give you my word. Out it goes.
Thank you.
I thank you for the tour. I was very impressed by the operation over there. It's 2 floors. It's a huge operation, and I even more appreciated the fact that you take your time to come in here and keep us informed about what's going on in the office. It was also clear walking around that Mr. Franklin has created a very collaborative and friendly team with a real sense of mission to protect the community, and I really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Franklin, as usual, thank you very much for everything you do, sir. Jocelyn.
Good morning. At the last meeting, or the meeting before, I'm sorry, I've lost track of time, I mentioned briefly that we were going to be putting together an ordinance concerning outdoor sales, primarily of the free giveaway phones. I think you see the easy ups all over the place, everywhere, on the sidewalks and parking lots. They're very much a nuisance. They obstruct traffic. They obstruct pedestrian flow. They're a little bit harassing and can be fairly hostile when they're approached about having a business license or not. We've had internally some conversation about just banning that altogether and requiring that kind of sale to be inside a building if a building owner or a business owner is amenable to that, and just keeping it away from the outdoors altogether. I would like to get some sense from the commission about the parameters of what this ordinance might look like. We have other outdoor sales that some people think are great and some people think is annoying and a nuisance. For example, the food carts, the fruit, icy things, the flower sellers, all of those kinds of things, the tamale carts. So I'd like to get a sense. I don't want to just have us write this in a vacuum. Very much would appreciate whatever feedback you can give me so we can sort of get going.
On that, I've noticed a lot of those. I was just going to, when Lee was just talking about cell phones, I was going to ask about those particular outlets. When you say the carts and the other slushies and this and that and everything else, they're mobile and they stay mobile, but a lot of them I see on street corners, obviously they have to get the property owners okay, I'm assuming. And are they doing that and improving that? Because we have, and my business is that we have a lot of people calling us, why is somebody on my property? And so I was just wondering how that's being monitored, if it's being monitored, or how can you, or can you,
Well, there's sort of a couple of aspects of that. You'll see on the weekends in particular on corners of undeveloped properties. So there's the cart. They don't generally have a city business license. I would wager a guess that they do not have the property owner's authorization to be there. We currently have some provisions in the business license chapter concerning peddlers and vendors and where they can be on public sidewalks, but that's an issue as well, because we do have some of these, easy up things that are just being erected on sidewalks. I see it on Avenue J near 20th West on the weekends quite often, the cell phone thing. So obviously they don't have city permission to be doing that. They're not supposed to be really conducting that kind of business on public sidewalks. So it's sort of a two-pronged problem. Property owners are having people use their properties for perhaps impermissible uses, certainly without business licensing. We're not getting the small amount of, we're not generating the business license fees that are due to us, and we don't know the legitimacy of the people who are conducting the operations. So there are some potential other issues that result from unlicensed outdoor businesses. Certainly the nuisance thing is a big deal. It does cause some traffic problems at some of the intersections where on one corner there's the flower seller and then on the opposite corner there's the cart with the fruit thing. I've seen some kind of traffic clusters around those areas. So it does sort of billow out and cause other problems.
I'm sorry. It would seem too that our businesses here in the city of Lancaster and throughout the valley who have a storefront, that have a business license, that are in the foam business, let's say, or in the slush business or whatever, they're in the flower business, to get their input to find out, how do they feel about the situation, because they pay for their permits, they pay for their licensing, they pay for everything. The phones I see everywhere too, and I know they're putting up a canopy and they're just sitting in, and I've seen them block traffic and inside now, trying to get into a piece of property, and I'm sure they're taking care of that property owner somehow, some way, on some type of percentage, but yet I'm wondering how your mobile phone stores are liking that, or does it matter to them? I mean, it's kind of one of those issues. If I was in that business, I'd say, wait a minute, so.
Well, I suspect that there's some element of, could you actually prove it up in a civil case? I don't know, but some sense of unfair business practices, because I'm paying property tax or I'm paying a high rent. You're just out there on the corner and you're not paying a dime for anything. So it's kind of unfair competition, maybe not in a legal sense, but certainly if I were a store owner, I would sort of feel that way. On the other hand, for example, the city of Los Angeles has been trying to help smaller business owners who just have a cart and allow them some limited areas where they can conduct their business. I don't know how well that's going over with actual, brick and mortar store owners that are in similar business. Again, my personal feeling is I would be a little resentful of that, but I don't know what the atmosphere is with the business owners up here.
Yeah, it's almost like we've been dealing for years, I believe, on the mobile detailing car washes, and that's an issue that's been brought up by people that are in the car wash business. Why are they allowing, or we're paying a permit, we have to pay a permit for the recycling of water and grime that comes into seepage pits, and he goes, what's going on with it? I've heard this for so many years. Would that be part of this too, or is that a completely separate issue in itself?
Oh, boy. I have a great mobile detail guy, so.
I'm not saying but it's been brought up. I hear you.
And that's really why we want to, some sense of how broad the parameters we want to set. That's not a decision for me individually to make. Obviously, that's a citywide decision. That's a policy matter, ultimately for city council determined. But I know that the council respects the opinion of this commission. So whatever input you can provide that can help inform what the ordinance ends up perhaps looking like, I know would go a long way.
Well, I have a good car wash guy too. It's one of those situations where I'm not exactly sure there is a fairness that fits every criteria. But listening to what you're saying, the thing that I would concern myself with is we can draft, the city council can draft, we can have any kind of ordinance we want to put into place. Then there's a problem of enforcement. And that's where I see us really having an issue, because do we really want our deputies or our city staff out there chasing down people selling cell phones on a corner. We can eliminate, I mean, we can make it illegal, but then there's the problem of enforcement.
And am I correct in thinking, I'm sorry, on following Howard on that too, is that, and Lee, I know you've helped trim us on some other properties. In that case, does the property owner have to put signage on that property that says, you're not allowed to be on the property, this and that? Because I know at one time that to keep people off, had to be signage that sometimes they had to post?
No, that's not required. What we do require right now, without codes in place prohibiting it, we provisionally allow some limited outdoor cell phone sales, but we treat it like a zoning provision under director's review. They have to have the written authorization of the property owner or the business owner to be on the parking lot. They have to show us a site map identifying exactly where they're going to be. And then they're allowed to be there, I think, for a total of 60 days. I guess with respect to the enforcement, the cell phone thing is daily. I mean, every day you can go somewhere and find those tilt-ups someplace or another. And so public safety officers and code enforcement officers run across them just in the course of their regular being out in the field and seeing what they're seeing. The food cart things are might be a little more challenging because I see them at least predominantly on the weekend, and we don't really have weekend code enforcement or public safety officer personnel out and about. So yes, you're right, enforcing could be a little challenging. I think the cell phone thing, I feel pretty confident that we could enforce at least sufficiently to minimize the impact and the nuisance caused by all of them. You bet.
So we do periodic operational issues to deal with this, okay? So at designated times or evenings or whatever might be more appropriate based on the activity. Okay, and typically what we like to do in the business community and part of our business improvement groups is getting letters of agencies of folks that are having habitual problems like that. So in other words, and actually Jocelyn just recently made up a new form for that that's more appropriate and a longer period of time. Those are filed with the city as well as the sheriff's department, and it designates an enforcement authority already on their property. So they're already predisposed to say, we don't want people trespassing on our property or utilizing it for some other purpose that we haven't designated. And so we handle it in that way as well.
I have more a statement than a question, but my issue with the nuisance sales, outdoor sales, is not so much with the cell phones, although I recognize them as and agree that they are a nuisance. But it's from a health code perspective, the food carts, because they have no regulation, they have no inspection, they have nothing, and food poisoning happens. Botulism, salmonella, things that are communicable. That's where my issue lies. And making sure that the people with those carts are licensed and those regulations enforced.
Well, I can tell you in the very near future, there's been collaboration with the Department of Health on that specific issue. So there is some planned resource movement here that's coming from the county and that agency in collaboration with the city to go out and address that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to go out. I wasn't downgrading the mobile car washes. I was just saying, I just was curious on that. So, any other questions for Jocelyn? Thank you, Jocelyn. Mr. DeRico.
Yes, thank you, sir. Last night, at the council meeting, I gave a brief introduction on some of the direction we're moving with our restorative justice model, intervention and prevention programs, and diversion. And so what I'd like to do is we have established relationships with numerous community partners as it relates to this issue and some of the things we're going to do, because diversion now and restorative justice is kind of the mindset we're going to deal with the reduction of certain sentencing and issues as it relates to some of the recent several years of legislation that we've endured as it relates to crime prevention. So moving forward with that, I think one of the first ones I'd like to introduce for the next meeting is two different presentations. One would be an update on the Antelope Valley Education Alliance and the success that we just got our latest statistics for the end of the school year, And some of the numbers are pretty impressive on the turnaround on that project and the potential expansion of that throughout the high school district. The second one is, and Mr. Franklin's been a part of this, is working with a community service provider who runs a program in another jurisdiction that actually networks with community groups and businesses to give more opportunities for people to participate in community labor or community service, where they actually take on that role to facilitate those relationships so individuals can make the court and the community whole again that can't necessarily afford to pay for a fine, or on the other side where Mr. Franklin, in lieu of some of these cases, has asked you for a significant amount of community service that is warranted as it relates to certain type of issues now that are misdemeanors. The problem we currently have is we have one service provider for that in the Antelope Valley. That's the city of Lancaster, okay, at our parks. Caltrans is so backed up right now, we have folks that wait on first come, first serve basis that are there at 3 o'clock in the morning, just trying to get the opportunity to serve their hours with Caltrans. But that group has a great program, and our timing is perfect because there's a county-wide initiative now through all the courts to get an indoctrinated program that represents all jurisdictions. Because right now it's run by community-based organizations and nonprofits, and there's no kind of continuity between any of the courts on how this is operated or how it's done or the fee structure or anything. So we're actually going to be able at the same time meet with the individuals from the court management programs and the Community Development Commission, who will have oversight for these programs, and I have a meeting scheduled with them next week to go over the program that we're introducing that I believe probably should be a model for how this is done. So I would like to bring that to the commission at a presentation as well at the next meeting. But my idea here as we talk about this restorative justice model is just bringing all the players to come and present to the commission on what their role and responsibility is. And I've just kind of made a short list here. Obviously, law enforcement community, county probation. We actually have a great relationship we've established with the new bureau chief, who's going to designate one of his deputy probation officer items dedicated to what we're going to be doing through this diversion and intervention project that we do throughout the city. CDCR, parole division, local school districts, all county and state agencies related to community support programs, DPSS, DCFS, the health department, mental health, housing departments, all those things that relates to homelessness. And then the community service-based providers, examples like AV Partners for Health, okay, with family referral, Paving the Way Foundation for Reentry, some of the folks that are already doing certain things, but not coordinated. It's not coordinated. Lastly, we've been meeting with a lot through the mayor's working group, the pastors' associations, and working through the churches, okay, to make them an integral part of this diversion model, okay, for that restorative mindset. Remember, restorative mindset is we got to look at crime differently, or the perpetrator, okay, and to come up with ways to make the victim whole again at the same time serving the community, but also not directly filing folks, and then mostly as this relates to juveniles, into the criminal justice system, especially with Prop 57 and the issues that we deal with now with juveniles. It's a whole nother ballgame. We could spend hours discussing the impact of that and currently what that's done through the juvenile justice system. So those are just things I'd like to bring these individuals through different meetings and have them talk about what their role and responsibility will be as it relates. But we're also, right now, I'm about 2 weeks from bringing forward a network that we're creating in a matrix to Mr. Bozigan that came out of this working group of all these service providers. We at one point had over 1,200 501c3 service providers listed in the city. We've pared that down to about 600 that are actually truly active. Okay, but of course, you know, that includes churches and all that as well. We're creating a database for people to be able to access for services, okay, and for agencies for services, and well, so to get everyone talking to each other. Okay, so we're collaborating on these issues. So I think that's something I'm excited about. I'm going to give you some numbers just over the last 3 years, just based on the Sheriff's Department's activity, just to say, look at this also from a resource model, okay, from a resource management tool. All right, we spend, right now, we had our budget last night, first public hearing. Vice Mayor Chris, what was it, almost $30 million just for public safety alone. Public safety is the largest chunk of the city's budget overall. So our Our council is very dedicated and has made a priority for community safety, but we also have to deal with these issues that have come at us and be creative on how we try and manage and raise that quality and standard of living in our community. Of course, law enforcement's a large part of that, but there's also other agencies and things that have a role and responsibility. But here's some numbers that I got from the station. So in 2014, the Sheriff's Department responded to 59,613 calls for service. And also in that same year, the deputies had 58,519 self-initiated activity contacts of the public. That's 118,132 contacts by law enforcement in 1 year just in our city, not from the whole station area, just within our city. That resulted in 8,239 arrests. Okay. 2015, number was slightly higher for those totals, 130,682 contacts with 6,738 arrests. 2016, the number went up again, 133,949 contacts with the public, and that resulted in 7,333 arrests. So you can see the activity level, right, has been very positive. Todd does a great job with his leadership. Pat, prior to him, as the motivation and work that's being done within the city is positive. But if you look, based on that contact comparison to numbers of arrests, that tells you what we're dealing with as it relates to some of these legislative issues and things as well. So we have to be more creative on how we deal with those problems. I actually believe, based on the research that I've done in restorative justice models, it'll give us more contact at a very early stage of what that at-risk activity may be, especially with our use or that delinquency that may propagate into criminal activity, that we can stop it at an early point in time where it does not become a factor down the road, which does what? Saves the taxpayers money. Significant fiscal impact related to being able to stop that. So that's why I'm kind of excited about it. I think the good thing for us here at the city is we're allowed to and actually motivated to experiment and see what we can develop out there. And again, I want to make sure that any ideas that you may have as a commission or things based on your contacts, please bring that into it, and we can have those discussions. We work with Lisa on a lot of issues as it relates to the things she's involved in, and I'd love to be more actively involved with issues as you see them within the community. Okay?
Any questions from Mr. Dorico?
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Senator Wilkes' office. Rick Cook.
Not much of an update from the last meeting we held, but I do want to mention a couple things. One of the things, access to the city is phenomenal. We had a constituent come into our office several times. I was able to walk across the street, talk to Lee, give me how the city is handling that issue and that person, and we were able to be consistent on our voice out to constituents, especially ones that are causing issues. So I appreciate the access from Lee and actually good advice. Have not seen her again. Just to give you a brief update on where we are at the Senate and the bills. Right now they're doing the final budget, which should be over in a few weeks, hopefully. So we'll know what kind of money that the governor wants to spend next year, as the city did theirs first reading last night. But SB 792 is in the Assembly, thanks to Dr. Brown and a few other people. This is the health care, looking at a county oversight for the trauma Measure B monies. Hopefully that'll get read second time in the Assembly, not go to any committees, and eventually get on the governor's desk. This really helps Antelope Valley Hospital in a couple different ways, but referring to this commission here, if they're able to get more money, especially in the trauma areas, they're able to work that ER a little bit differently. Maybe a deputy won't have to sit there for 8 hours, maybe, sometimes. I think that's the last count I got, Captain, was 8 hours.
Depending on how busy they are, it could be lengthy.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll be more than the $1 million a year that's coming from the county on these funds, and hopefully they'll go up to that number that they need to do. SB 139, Jocelyn asked Assemblyman Lackey's office. That is a 2-year bill. It's still sitting in the Senate Governance and Finance. hopefully it'll get out and maybe get represented next year when the session starts in January. I'll always turn to you for help when we need letters to get and this is the synthetic drug bill that city's been working on, even worked on it with Senator Runner's office. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks, Senator Wilk, for taking that initiative. As I've said last time, the people of the Antelope Valley get taxed to pay for this Measure B trauma fund. And what's happened is that money from this district goes to the county, and the county uses it as a slush fund to pay their bills at their county hospitals down in Los Angeles, having abandoned the county hospital up here nearly 20 years ago. I think Senator Wilk has identified this as an injustice to the Antelope Valley and is taking these actions.
As well as Assemblyman Lackey, he is the co-author of this bill, and now it's in Assemblyman Lackey's hands. Push it through the Assembly. Like I said, it was read first time, no comments. It passed through the Senate with no votes. So it was all positive, and hopefully it'll keep going through the Assembly without any questions. So,
good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Assemblyman Lackey's office, Russ Williams.
Good morning. Real quick update on AB 42. If you remember at our last meeting when we all got together, it would end California's bell system. It failed to pass, and so fortunately, it passed a number of the committees, but then it came down to appropriations. They realized it would cost several $billion per year to put this through, and we don't have the money, as we know right now. So that's the main reason that they killed it. There is, however, a copy or an identical bill called SB 10 from the Senate side. That's right now making its way through, but we believe that will be killed as well. So neither one will make that. The one thing we're looking at right now is SB 54, and that was voted on yesterday during the Assembly Public Safety, which Assemblyman Lackey is on that committee. It passed, and what that would do, it would bar state and local government or law enforcement agencies from cooperating with the federal government on enforcing immigration policy. And one of the problems, and there's a few of them with the bill, is that it creates barriers that wouldn't allow the local authorities, if you have a felon who's an immigrant in your jail, you can release them, but you can't contact the immigration offices on that. So and there's nothing that says that you're able to hold them or anything. So that's one of the problems with it right now.
So what's good about that?
There is no good about
Okay.
it. In my opinion.
I've kind of missed that, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with it.
So we got a felon in jail that's illegal, but we can't do anything and call anybody but release.
Right. Yeah. Once they're released, you can call and say you released this felon.
Once they're released?
Yes, but you can't hold them or can't turn them over to the immigration authorities.
Oh, man, I don't get it.
And it looks like that will pass. That's going to pass. So, one of the issues. So, any question?
So, if you don't mind, Mike, so it's not just that this is endangers the community. It's an astonishing defiance of the rule of law. It seems to me that in a democracy we agree to participate in a decision-making process, and we try and get what we want through that process, and sometimes we don't get what we want, and another group of people get what they want. But there's a tacit agreement amongst people living in a democracy that when the other side gets what they want, they'll abide by the law. And so what we're really seeing here is the state legislature choosing to undermine federal law. They're essentially making a statement to the public that we shouldn't respect the rule of law. We should disrespect it. In fact, if you don't like a law, you should choose not to follow it. Now, if citizens were following this line of thinking, they'd be arrested. But the legislature seems to take it on itself to follow this line of thinking, and apparently will have no consequences for it. The notion of teaching the public or standing up and setting an example to undermine the rule of law and disrespect the rule of law is essentially the path to anarchy. I don't mean to sound like I'm on a soapbox, but anarchy is a state where people have decided to disallow order and disallow the rule of law. So it's astonishing to me that a legislature would choose to send this message of we disrespect the law and we think it's a good thing. So, sorry for the soapbox.
That's okay.
No, the soapbox, well decided.
I actually think that this commission should make a very strong recommendation to the city council that they send a very strong letter of disapproval about this bill. And if that's something that would be of any assistance, maybe it's too little too late, but nonetheless, I feel very strongly
think all
about
voices
it.
should be heard. Without a doubt, whatever your recommendation is for a letter opposing or whatever, we will certainly pass that on.
So if there was, is there a step that we should take to make that recommendation to the city council?
I think amongst the
Can
commission.
we do something like that and ask the?
You can just make a motion to recommend to city council, and then staff could put together a memo to the council for their consideration that you have discussed this issue and strongly recommend that they oppose it.
So we take that in the form of a motion and a second?
A motion, second, and a vote.
Okay. Dr. Brown?
So that I would move that we pass a resolution to strongly recommend the opposition to Bill 54.
It's not technically a resolution, but you can just make the motion that the commission as a body recommend to city council that they so oppose.
Fair enough. I like your language.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Please vote. That recommendation goes to recommending the city council, so is okay, 6-0, so.
All right.
So I just have one more. While these legislators were debating this bill, what was the rationale in the room for allowing it? I mean, what's the reasoning behind it?
Well, it just went through the Assembly of Public Safety, which Assemblyman Lackey is a vice chairman of the commission. You'd have to talk with him. I mean, he opposed it. He was one of the two who voted no.
He was one of the two that voted no?
There were two on the Assembly Public Safety
So
Commission.
how many voted yes?
5. Yeah. So he was one of the two. And so the rationale is be up to them.
Yeah, I guess sometimes you look at it'd be nice to know who the yes votes were, or the no vote, vice versa, so we would have a direction to write a letter to those individuals and let them know how dissatisfied we are as citizens, so.
I could tell you the names.
That'd be great. I'm sure this commission and everyone would like to know that, because it's disturbing. Any
Other
questions?
questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Russ. Public business from the floor. This is the time of the meeting that anything that's not on the agenda, you may fill out a speaker card, turn it in, and you have 3 minutes to speak to the commission on anything that's not on the agenda. We have a couple cards. Mr. Juan Leo, sir.
Yes, hi. My name is Juan Leo. You guys know me by now, I'm sure. I've been here many times. I'm kind of disappointed, Mr. Little. But the last time I was here, it seems like I was up here 3 minutes, right? And it seems that, at least to me, from what I took, that all you gathered from that was that I didn't address the RICO as Mr. Oh, Mr. You know, but you can go ahead and take a look at the video back when you get a chance. You know, I have serious concerns when it comes as to criminal justice. Now, you have serious concerns when it came to your gas station, the Chevron, right? You were up here talking for hours and hours with the Planning Commission, right? You know, I would like something like that, a little dialogue, because there's a lot of serious issues going on in our neighborhoods here, well, at least in the city of Lancaster that I'm aware of. I was arrested for things that I didn't do. I had a videotape that proved my innocence. Deputies that night, I will welcome the new captain to contact me. My contact information is on the card. You can talk to Lieutenant Harris. I have videotape that proved my innocence. That basically said everything that I was being accused of was a total lie. I offered to the deputies that night several times. The videotape will show that I'm letting them know that there's footage about it. Yet nowhere to be found on the criminal report. DA's office, Prosecutor Gadsden, I'm sure you're well familiar with her. She wrote an email to my attorney, telling him we're willing to hold the case over for a year or so, pending no violation of law. My attorney wrote back to her saying, the videotape is conclusive evidence that the alleged victim is lying. Why does your office continue to believe anything they're saying? The videotape the videotape proves I'm innocent. But yet they're over there entertaining trying to hold the case over for a year or so. The case is not dismissed. Well, he writes on there something about, you know, this looks like malicious prosecution to me. Not necessarily in those words, but they definitely did use the word malicious prosecution. If the case is not dismissed, we'll set it for trial. As soon as they heard that, suddenly they want to say, oh, R.E., the videotape, in reference to the videotape, he would be willing to dismiss the case. Talking about William Johnson, who had filed the case. He would be willing to dismiss the case, R.E. the video. But yet, when you look at the docket, the court docket was just another official legal document. You can't find that videotape here anywhere, which obviously Prosecutor Gadsden knew about. The DA's office knew about it. You can't find it here. This is an official legal document. And, you know, also, let's see here. So many other things I'd like to speak about. Feel free to contact me. 3 minutes is not enough. A little dialogue would be great. These things are going on in our neighborhoods, all around the city of Lancaster, possibly within the rest of the county of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mr. Leal. Appreciate your comments.
Feel free to contact me.
Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners, good morning. Today is Flag Day, and I have to admit that one of the funnest parts of coming to these meetings is standing up and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. And, you know, America isn't perfect, but I hold the view that it is the greatest country on earth for many fundamental reasons, because we're moving in the right direction towards a better future. And that's what heartens me. There are many things to get discouraged about, but we have to look on the bright side. That's our choice, to think how we figure out how we approach these things that bother us, because I know that if I let things that are troublesome to me drive me crazy, I could easily get overwhelmed with the chaos and the insanity. I heard a couple things here today that were great. Captain, explaining what you did about what the Eye in the Sky does was very helpful. And Lieutenant, mentioning the warnings that are given, and it's not all hammer, that's great stuff to hear. There's a certain segment of people that are helped by that. That's why, Mr. DeRico, I was thinking in the restorative justice model, do you have a mission statement for the overarching goal? And I know that I used to work with a family teaching model that helped young people internalize proper behavior by earning token economy points for things for just doing things the right way, saying thank you after someone does something, and they don't believe it, but after a while doing that, you internalize that behavior. So the mission statement, a little kinder than getting knuckleheads to understand they have a civic responsibility, but that's the goal, and that kind of a thing has to be preached throughout. If you're on Caltrans picking up trash along the highway, I had a job one time. I was at a wholesale florist, but there was a guy, we called him Crazy Bob. He rolled his pants up and he just walked around. Is everybody happy? And you have to have that theme in there. So what are we doing here today? Becoming better people. How are we going to do it? Learn that service is good. These put something in there like that, have a camp song, anything like that. That kind of stuff helps. So thank you to everybody that withstands the pressure to be cynical. Mr. Franklin, I appreciate you so much. You bear the integrity of a James Comey or a Robert Mueller, and I appreciate that we have you right here in our community. Thank you so very much for that. Everyone else here, I appreciate you and I love you, and God bless our city. Happy Flag Day.
David, thank you. It's always a pleasure. Commissioner comments, anything? Okay, then we'll stand adjourned until Wednesday, July 12th, 2017 at 10 a.m.